Well, there's a rumor report going around that I'm taking with a huge grain of salt, but it would be pretty interesting and get fans excited. Recently, we saw Sydney Sweeney join Sony's Spider-Verse as Julia Carpenter, but now we're hearing she could be making the jump over to the MCU and taking up a whole different role. And this role, many fans think she was born to play. Let's take a couple minutes to talk about what role she could be picking up, why I'm really sure this character could appear in the upcoming film, and some of the possible problems of nabbing an actress who just played a very similar part. Now before we dive in though, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and ring the bell for all the updates. We do daily Marvel and DC videos, and we want to be your place for all the superhero news, but we're going to bring it to you truthfully and transparently so you are in the know. Well guys, this story is all over the place, and I see a lot of people talking about it, so I thought we could dive in for a minute, but I want to clarify beforehand, I'm really skeptical. Now, as many of you know, earlier this year, Sydney Sweeney made her debut in the Marvel Universe in Madam Web, where she picked up the role of Spider-Woman, aka Julia Carpenter. Now, we don't have to go down the rabbit hole of all the problems with that movie, and how little we actually saw the Spider version of the character fleshed out. We did get a couple of shots of her in the costume, but for the most part, these characters were played as their alter egos and not their superhero selves. Obviously, this didn't work out well for everyone, but now there's a new rumor that seems to indicate she's ready to jump back into the superhero pool. But honestly guys, dump the whole jar of salt on this one, because if I'm predicting anything, this one's going to turn out to be false. Now, Scooper My Time to Shine Hello dropped this story earlier today, and you guys know how we feel about anonymous scoopers and how reliable some of this news is, and I feel like this one is likely going to be debunked. Now, what he is saying is that the Anything But You and Immaculate Star is currently in talks with Marvel Studios to play a role in Spider-Man 4. And the thoughts of her being in Spider-Man 4 bring up one character, and that would be Black Cat. Now, on its surface, Sydney Sweeney as Black Cat is really not such a bad casting, and honestly, Black Cat coming to life on the big screen is way overdue. But there is a multitude of problems here, and it really gives me the indication this story is total BS. First and foremost, Sony has had a Black Cat project in the works for a really long time, and I don't think they would back off that character, just like they haven't backed off many of those other Spider-Man characters. Additionally, regardless of a good relationship with Marvel Studios, I generally don't think these contracts would have been written in such a way that Sweeney could play this character and immediately turn back around and dive into the MCU. Although most of us knew the Madam Web film was not going to do so great at the box office, Sony was looking for a win, and with that win there would have been sequels, meaning more than likely she's under contract for multiple sequels from Sony, and therefore working on a Marvel Studios project might be out of the question. Now all this becomes fuzzy because quite honestly nobody knows the full agreement between the two studios, and people at the top of the food chain can make calls that kind of circumvent some of these rules or allowances or alterations of these contracts that are simply agreed upon to move forward. Now, as for her as Black Cat, she's probably at the top of the list of actresses who could take up the character and drive a lot of attention to the role. The character is so important to Spider-Man mythos in the comics world, and honestly is one of the cooler anti-hero characters in the Marvel Universe, and kind of established living in that gray area a long time before comics caught up with her. Now, whether Black Cat is part of Spider-Man 4, we're gonna have to wait and see. She is one of those street-bound characters I could totally see being part of Spider-Man's world, and that extended street-level MCU. Sweeney would drive a lot of attention to the character and does have the physical characteristics of the character, and would match her pretty great, and if the costume is great, would look like she was torn right from the pages of Marvel Comics. If this actually works out, well, we're gonna have to wait and see. I'm still thinking it's not true, but I wouldn't be disappointed if it was.